Hello, lovely Patreon supporters. Before we begin, you should know that the camera broke and stopped recording whilst we were recording this. So, sorry, this week you've got an audio podcast, but I hope you enjoyed. Martin, what's your topic?
Hello and welcome, patrons, to this extra episode of Stories from the Bunker, where we discuss an extra news story that might interest you. Might not, but hopefully will. Today's I've got a news headline that says plans to demolish Columbine site of deadliest US shooting scrapped. They're scrapping plans to demolish it. So the idea being that they were going to demolish the school because of what happened there, and move it to another site, rebuild the school. Right. The reason being that a lot of people, like morbid tourists, if you want to call it, were heading to the school site and causing issues, and there had to be extra security. And also there were a few concerns about people that were a little bit too fascinated with the history of the site. Right. I don't know. Yeah. There's always that risk, of something happening there. And so they plan to scrap it. But there's been widespread opposition to this just because because of the history there. Even though it's morbid, it's part of the community, and they don't want to they don't want to forget about it. I think that's something that comes up a lot when you look at places where disasters have happened. That they don't just want to get rid of it because it acts as a reminder of what's happened. Yeah.
Couldn't they just put up a monument instead?
Well, that's a good question. It's a good question. Maybe they could, but anyway, there's been significant opposition to this. So the plan was supported by Columbine's former principal of the school and the district's head of security, but for many in the community, it hit an emotional nerve. They said that the plan was too expensive and disruptive, and not solve the problem of the so-called Columbiners, so people visiting there. Right, so it's a kind of double-edged sword. It's like it's going to cost a lot more money to do, and so they're coming up with alternatives like having extra fences around the perimeter and having a bit more security and stuff like that to kind of. To deal with this issue. So it's multifaceted for sure. But the part that I want to focus on is about the idea that tearing the school down and building it somewhere else would kind of prevent the so-called morbid tourists visiting, and whether tearing a site like this down is actually a good thing when it comes to looking back on the history, and history maybe try not to repeat itself.
It's interesting. I have a huge amount of sympathy for the people in the community that want to remember this event, and they kind of almost don't want to, or would see this as getting rid of that history. And it's almost like if you tear down the school, it's kind of like erasing that from existence, almost like. And you want to remember the people involved, not the perpetrators, but the people that. The victims of the event, and I guess tearing it down is kind of like you're pasting over history. One of the quotes from an opponent said, "Tearing down Columbine, even 20 years later, will be a capitulation to the school shooters." So that's a good point. Tensions are high. Okay. And it's interesting to know. I mean, is that true? Is that actually true? I mean, they're not around. You're trying to remember the people who died. Obviously, I don't know the facts, but surely there must be a monument already there.
Yeah, you think there might be. Yeah.
Solves one problem, but it's obviously a very emotional situation.
I feel like, so personally, pragmatically, if it's possible, it seems like they should just build the new site, move the school there, keep the old one open as a tourist trap and potentially a police trap for future serial killers.
A tourist trap?
I mean, if people are coming to visit, they'd be willing to pay to see the site. But then, think of all the documentaries and filmmakers who'd like to go there and actually film the site and do. You could turn it into a monument in and of itself, a museum to the event. However, you basically just said this, but there's an argument to be made, and I think it's a serious argument, that the school shooters did it basically for attention. That's the main reason they did it, for fun, in their warped sense of fun, but for attention. So if you do turn it into a monument, and if you keep the memory alive of the event itself, aren't you... That person said it's a capitulation to destroy it and reopen the new site, but surely it's a capitulation to the shooters to keep the memory alive in that way.
But at the same time, if you're creating a monument to it, you're remembering the people, but you're remembering the event. Whereas if you keep the school open, it's very much the thing of, despite this, the school is still running. We carry on as we were. There's a difference there.
I see what they mean, A bit like the way Ground Zero, they've kept that space and turned it into an open space, a monument to what happened, but they've also rebuilt the skyscrapers, and the stock exchange is still there, right? I suppose
it's interesting, and honestly I don't know what my opinion is, because I'm very sympathetic to both kind of viewpoints, because on the one hand, yes, keep it open because otherwise they won almost if you have to close it down, but then it is still a place where people go to school, and they shouldn't have to deal with the added threat from Columbineers or whatever.
Or just the stress, the emotional and psychological stress of people who are harmless but curious coming to the site. That's disruptive of the school's job.
You kind of don't want to be.
You don't want any disruptions. You want people to be able to study there.
You don't want to be reminded of it every day as well, I guess.
So they've had there've been a few instances where the police were. I know there was this. I think it was a girl. I think it's written in this story, but there was someone who came to the school. Who was very much, what's the word? Not mentally stable, and they ended up killing themselves in the mountains near the site. So I think they were on a bit of a watch as to what they were doing. So they were so fascinated in the site.
Yeah.
But there are other instances, like if you look at Sandy Hook in 2013, that was demolished. Is there any difference there? I mean, why was that demolished but not Columbine?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It seems like it's very much how the community reacts to it.
Yeah. It sounds very similar, in fact, to the recent wave of taking down statues of Confederate Civil War heroes in America as well. Some people outraged at this part of history being obfuscated from public view. But at the same time, people raising the good point that why should we celebrate? I mean, it's slightly different, obviously. The Columbine school itself is not celebrating the shooters.
Yeah.
But similarly, by continuing to exist the way it is keeping the memory of that incident alive. And there's an argument to be said that memory, the incident shouldn't be forgotten. You can teach people about it in history, but on a daily basis, people shouldn't have to think about it all the time.
Yeah. It's one of the things that
exactly.
If you think if it's a working active school as well,
yeah.
It's a little bit different, isn't it? If you look at something like Auschwitz, and if you guys have been, it's very much still preserved pretty much as it was. But no one has to be there on a daily basis, right?
That's
apart
true.
from if you work someone who I don't know works.
That's a choice to work there.
Exactly.
It?
So it's kind of different with a school where a tragedy's happened. I don't think there's not an easy answer, is there? Really?
No, I'm really struggling to kind of formulate my own opinions on it. I think if I come down on either side of the fence, it would be to tear it down and well, maybe not even tear it down, but like you say, maybe turn it into a kind of kind of I don't know, not a place where people are going there to learn every day. Move them to a different school or something, because I mean, like you say, that woman came there and killed herself nearby. Like school children don't need to have to face that kind of that kind of risk, added risk when they're going to school. I mean, I think it's interesting though that Columbine. I mean, how many school shootings happen in America these days? Quite a lot, right?
I mean, fortunately so.
It's interesting that that's still like so prominent. I guess prominently remembered as. Was it like one of the first ones, or like?
I think it was one of the first ones to be nationally kind of again celebrated is not the right word. What's the word?
Recognized?
I guess.
Famous? Infamous?
It came at a time. I mean, the 24-hour news cycle was, invented in the 80s essentially, and this was the first major school shooting. Certainly, it was huge. So I think that's probably why, and of course, things like Bowling for Columbine make it much more famous. Or infamous, I suppose. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, and personally, I don't think I have the right to have a particular opinion about it, because I can't imagine what it's like to live in a community where that kind of thing happened.
But, I mean, it does. Going back to what you said about the Confederate statues, I guess closing it down wouldn't be a case of trying to erase the past or anything, but they move those statues into museums and places where the general public doesn't have to see it on a daily basis, but if you want to find the history of it, the history's still there somewhere. Was the argument for taking those statues down. I guess it's kind of a similar kind of thing here, I guess, in that maybe it shouldn't be still like people shouldn't have to face it every day still, but if they want to find a place to remember the events, then there should be an appropriate place for that.
I guess it's sorry.
Sorry,
Like I say, ultimately, I guess for me, it comes down to the motives for opening this new site. If there are other reasons, like we've reached capacity, we need more space, or the facilities are really old and the building's falling down, we need to do something, then
I imagine there's other reasons as well.
Yeah. Let's think that if this
Others
is just
would have done it earlier, right?
Yeah, if the whole fact that it is a mental and emotional disturbance to people working there, especially if people are drawn to the site for touristy or darker reasons, then if that's a kind of an extra reason, one of the birds that they'll be killing with the stone of moving the site of the school, then yeah, absolutely. But if I think I might agree with the resident who says if the only reason to open a new site is to get around this disturbance caused by the memory of Columbine, then maybe that's the wrong reason to do it. Yeah.
I think if you were going to school there today, though, it might be a bit strange or whatever for the first few times you're in the building, but after that, it's like
it's just your school.
It's just like, well, it's the same as going to, I don't know, a square in Berlin or Krakow where people were shot. It's like you're there and it's like, okay, this is somber. If you were to walk through there every day, you'd be like, it's just my route to work or whatever. I remember that this has happened here, but it's a building, right?
But it's interesting that you use that example because actually, Hitler's bunker in Berlin is now just a car park. They didn't keep it. They totally concreted over it, and it's now just nothing. And people still go there, and it's like a bus stop or a car park or something.
And Berlin's changed drastically, isn't it? It's quite hard to see the original.
That's true.
But I mean, they still have all the photos and like a lot of the history. They haven't got rid of it. It's just in an appropriate place. It's in a museum.
The topography of terror, isn't there, in Berlin as well? That kind of shows all what happened there.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Holocaust Memorial as an example of.
That's been in the news this week as well, actually.
Oh, really? Why? What's happened?
Who was it? Who was the celebrity? It was a celebrity who took a photo and their kids, and they were running through it.
Right.
Like running through. It's all like if you haven't been there, there's lots of. Have you all been there? There's lots of blocks of concrete representing. Each one represents a certain amount of people who were killed. I can't remember the exact details, but it's massive expanse. It's not like a little memorial. And people do sit on it at the lunch or whatever. It's like big concrete blocks as opposed to anything else. And she took a picture of their kids, I can't remember who it was, of their kids running through it. And there was debate whether that was appropriate or not. And some people who I think it was survivors or at least relatives of survivors said it's good that on a site like this, people are free to do what they want to do, kind of thing, without being disrespectful to their kids. But other people are like, you shouldn't allow your kids to run through it because it's a memorial to people, millions of people who died. And so that debate kind of raged on.
That is interesting.
I didn't know. I was kind of mixed. I kind of conflicted because I've been there.
Same.
And
I kind of feel
I didn't
like
sit on it. Or eat my lunch on it, but or run through it.
But at the same time, I would say that it is kind of designed to be like an interactive memorial.
There's lots of it's like a maze, really, isn't it?
The point is that you go through it and it kind of descends down, but the statues on top are still just as high, or slightly taller. So as you go down, they
get
look
higher
like
and
they're
higher.
getting higher and higher.
It's really cool. It's
cool.
I mean,
it's
it's also
well done.
deliberately designed to be as bland as possible in that sense. It's just like I say, it's just concrete blocks.
Yeah, or it might be granite actually. But, but as in they're just blocks.
They're just blocks. So I think that. That seems perfectly fine. Children will be children. They'll do what they'll do. It's not the same as going to the Menin Gate where there's actual names of soldiers who died and going and scratching them off or painting over them or something like that. Because that's a deliberate act of vandalism.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But going back to Columbine, I'd like to know what our viewers think and what our Patreon supporters think. Please let us know in the comments below, either on this video or on the Patreon page.
Yes.
And thanks for listening and thanks for all your support.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Bye.